Welcome back to the Speaking and Communicating podcast. I am your host, Roberta Ndlela. If you are looking to improve your communication skills, both professionally and personally, this is the podcast you should be tuning into. Communication and soft skills are crucial for your career growth and leadership development. And by the end of this episode, please log on to Apple and Spotify and leave us a rating and a review. Now let's get communicating with our guest today. Joining us from New Jersey, Karen Ann Bulluck is a novelist. She has authored best-selling novels that focus on women leadership and corporate life. She was the first woman to be promoted to be an executive at a previous company and has been an executive for almost 2 decades. She is here to help us, especially us women leaders, in order to gain more confidence, in order to have integrity and be risk takers in our careers. And before I go any further, please help me welcome her to the show. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Roberta. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here because your topic is one that's near and dear to my heart.
I'm so glad you say that because I feel like we drum this communications thing over and over again. Don't you think people are tired by now, Karen?
They might be, but it's so important. I was an English major when I was in college, and everybody thought I was going to go into teaching when I got out of college. And I'm like, yeah, no, I don't really want to be a teacher. And they said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I'm going to do anything I want to do. And they laughed at me, of course. But when I went into business, what I really found that my communication skills, I think for me personally, my communication skills were the single biggest reason for my success in corporate life because that foundation of being able to communicate well, effectively, and concisely really just helped propel my career in unexpected ways at times.
First question. So, how long ago did you graduate and come to that realization?
Okay, it was a long time.
Not to tell your age.
I graduated from college in the mid 80s, so I will tell you that. And I think it probably took me another decade before I realized how important that the communication skills were going to be to my career.
Mhm. Was it something that you personally came to an understanding of just by sitting and analyzing and looking back, or did somebody bring it to your attention? Because in most cases, we find that a lot of the time people are not even aware. They just think I'm really good at my technical job, and that's how I'm going to climb the corporate ladder.
That's an interesting question. I think it was a combination of both things. People did compliment me on my writing skills in particular, and the clarity of my writing skills, but I also knew that by comparing what I was writing to other people, I also could tell that I could get to the point quickly, that I could make things very clear for people. And so I think it was probably a combination of both me, my observations, and people commenting.
Hmm. I'm glad you brought the writing skills to our attention because I always highlight that because I started working in the mid 90s. So not too far after you started. And I found that because we didn't have Google, ChatGPT, or any other tools to help us write business letters, emails, and things like that, is I remember my first mentor, he used to just keep editing the letter over and over again. He will edit it about 8 times before we print it on a letterhead, which means that's the final version before sending it to the client. So that brought to my attention how important writing skills were. And as you said, you can tell the difference of when my mentor wrote a letter versus somebody else who was not as meticulous as he was.
Yeah, and that's really important. And even in the day of Google and Chat GPT and all the other tools, which are great tools to use, but you still have to be careful that you're keeping your voice and your integrity and keeping the uniqueness of you, your as yourself and of your company, particularly if you're doing customer facing communications. You don't want to sound like everybody else. So you have to be a little bit careful using those tools. I mean, they're great tools to help you frame things and put things in context, but you've got to keep yourself in it. And I think that's really important.
That's very important indeed, especially because there's this debate of, is AI replacing the human element, or is it adding to what humans are already doing? Because I think that's where some people might get confused, thinking there's going to be a replacement versus it's just enhancing what I was already doing.
Yes, exactly. And it's interesting that you bring up the whole AI thing because I've written, as you mentioned before, some novels about corporate life and executive life, and the new novel that is coming out the end of February is called
Mm.
Embracing Trust. And there's a lot in that about what AI can and can't do, and the struggle that my character as an executive has in trying to, navigate that. What's AI good for? What's it not good for? Where does it fit? And AI can enhance a lot of things, and there's probably some places very simplistic where it could replace humans, but it really we're humans are so much more than just our rational brains, and AI can't replace that.
Hmm. So let's talk about your novels. You went from corporate life to author and write fiction novels talking about your experiences. How did you make that shift? Because those are almost two different worlds.
And they are, and I kind of I made the shift not well. Let's put it this way. It was a difficult shift because I thought, okay, I've been reading books all my life. I've been writing all my life. I can do this. I can write a novel. So I will tell you a little secret. And this is another key to soft skill success in corporate, but it played out in my book writing career. So I wrote my first novel, which was actually called Ascending Ladders. You will not see it behind me. And it was good. It was okay. It was okay. I wrote it myself. I had some editing and some help with it, but it was okay. And then it needed a sequel. So I happened to get connected with a writing coach who is fantastic, and she helped me write the sequel to it. Well, the sequel to it was like bounds and bounds better than my first one. And I thought, okay, now I have a big problem because if somebody reads the sequel and then goes back and reads the first one, they're going to be like, what happened to this person? This is like it's either
Night
somebody
and
else
day.
wrote this next one or completely different. And so I talked to my writing coach about it, and what I did is I ended up going back and rewriting the first one, which
Mm.
is now Discovering Power. So that's the first book in the series. It's called Discovering Power, and I rewrote it. And so I, pulled the first one off of Amazon, and I, got rid of all the copies, and I said, okay, no, we're going to go with this new version because it's so much better, because I've learned so much. Because to your point, writing fiction is a completely different skill set than I had to use before. I mean, yes, I had writing skills, but not writing fiction skills. So it was kind of a shock to the system that, I thought, oh my gosh, I can do this. And then it's like, well, me, I can't do it as well as I think. So I had to learn. And it was a great experience, and one of the things I think I learned from it, and then I tell other women that want to take risks, um, you can do do-overs. There's almost
Mm.
everything you can do over in your life. I mean, there's a few things you can't, but for the most part, if you mess something up or you fail at it the first time or it's not exactly where you want it to be, you can do it again. Even
Hmm.
something as publishing a book. So that's where I ended up in that journey. And now I've learned a lot, and my fiction rating skills are a heck of a lot better than they were when I started.
That is such a wonderful lesson. And the thing is, I love that you say that you can do over. And you literally were doing a whole overhaul of the new book and pulling. Like a lot
Yeah.
of people would just think, oh no, let's not do that again. Because here's the thing about doing something and then messing it up. You learn what not to do, you learn what
Yes.
works. They call it fail forward. You learn
Yep.
more because yes, you can sit in a master class and absorb everything, but doing is tends to be one of your best teachers.
Absolutely. And I did learn a lot from that experience. It was a humbling experience, but I learned a lot from it. And I'm in a lot of ways glad that it happened that way because I wouldn't have learned as much and I wouldn't have really taken the time to work on those skills and, go from being an okay writer to being a really good one.
Right. Now let's talk about two things you mentioned earlier. Discovering your own power. How do you help your professional clients discover their own power, especially women? Because they say that one of the challenges we have is that we don't even realize our power in the boardroom. Even when we're qualified, we don't think that we're good enough. There's a confidence issue. How do you help them discover their own power?
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I had a client who thought of herself as I'm a sole contributor. I don't manage people, and I want a job. I want, and she certainly had some income goals, and and I'm like, well, you're not going to get where you want to go just by being a sole contributor.
Mm.
You've got to manage people. And she goes, well, I haven't done that. I said, well, that's not true. You have done that. So the first thing is I help people go back and say, what have you really done? Right? People
Okay.
say, well, I haven't done that. I can't do that. Well, a lot of times they have done it. Maybe not in the way they like that is expected or normal, and I use that word very loosely, but they've done it. Like, for instance, for this client,
Hmm.
yes, she had managed people in the past. It had been a long time, but she also worked in cross-functional organizations where she was maybe people didn't have people reporting to her, but she was certainly managing people because we
Right.
manage people around us, we manage people above us. If we're really managing if we're really managing our careers well, we are doing a lot of managing people. And so when I pulled that apart with her to say, what have you done in this arena? She was like, oh, yeah, I really do have a lot more skills here than I thought I did. And yeah, maybe I can apply for a job that has people reporting to it, maybe
Mm.
even a job with a VP title or, an executive title. And she did, and she got one.
Right. Because she
And
knew what to do. And the
because
thing
she
is,
had those skills, but
hmm,
it really took sit down and look at what you've done and then look at the skills you've learned from them. Maybe not in a conventional way, but
or the conventional title. I think we get caught up in the
right,
title.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, we do. We often get caught up in titles. And I know a lot of women that there's this one woman I worked with who was totally hung up on titles, and it just got in her way. It
Hmm.
just got in her way. You have to look beyond titles and look at what you can really do and what you can really contribute. And it's probably a lot more than you think it is.
Yes. And your resume will look very different from what you thought and versus if you go to Karen and she pulls that out for you, if you hadn't come to that realization. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Because we underestimate what we've done and we discount things because, oh, it wasn't a big deal. Well, a lot of things were probably a much bigger deal than we give ourselves credit for. And I think
Hmm.
that's one of the differences between men and women. Men will give themselves credit for anything. Most of them.
You don't want to get me started.
But
Right.
in some ways that's healthier than diminishing everything that we do, which is what we
Right.
tend to do as women. We diminish what we've done
Mm.
versus exaggerate it. Now, neither extreme is the best. maybe men exaggerate too much, and I'm generalizing a whole lot here. So please, the men that are listening, don't. I'm really not insulting them because in a lot of ways it's healthy
Mm,
to say, "Hey, I've done this, and I'm going to celebrate it."
And
Versus
also,
women who say, "Oh, I did this, but I had a team that helped me do this, and it wasn't that big a deal." And you know what? All the things, all the smoke and mirrors we put up in front of, rather than saying, "Hey, yeah, I did this."
yeah, we play the humble game because here's the difference between us and men is that even if they haven't done something before and they get assigned that task, they say, okay, yes, I'm going to do it. For us, we say,
Mhm.
I've never done this before. Do you think I'm capable? Do you think I can? Yeah, you see, the response is very different from the
Yeah,
same
and
scenario.
honestly, one of the reasons that I did as well in my career as I did because I was never afraid to say, "Yes, I'll try it."
That's a very good one. You see the confidence in there.
For whatever reason, I had the confidence to say, I will try it. And I
Mm,
think there's a pivotal story in there. When I was early in my career, in my company, I was a trainer. I used to teach people how to use software.
yeah.
And my boss came back one day from a trade show and said, "There's this customer who hates our software, is pissed off as hell. They want their money back, blah, 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 blah." So I told them I was going to send you up there for 2 days and you were going to teach them how to use the software and they were going to love it by the time you left. And I just looked at him, I'm like, "You did what?" Like,
He had
hello.
confidence in you,
He had
Karen.
confidence in me. But
Yeah,
what happened was I went up there. I spent 2 days. By the time I left, they loved the software. They
there
were
you
our
go.
best users for the next 5 years. And that incident completely changed my view of myself and what I could accomplish.
I
And after
absolutely
that,
love that.
I really wasn't afraid to say, "Okay, yeah, I'll try it. I'll do it."
Which means also the onus is on leaders to show their team members how much confidence, how much they trust that they can deliver.
Yep,
Mm,
100%.
right. What do you
But
mean that? Sorry, go ahead.
you do have to have confidence in yourself and you do have to say, "I'm okay doing something I haven't done before."
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, because it starts with you at the end of the day. Like you said, you are the driver of your career.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yep. You have to be. No one else is going to drive it for you.
Right. What do you mean when you say that female professionals, they also struggle to maintain integrity in the boardroom?
Well, I think in the boardroom or in any executive role, you often run into situations where the company's actions or things they're doing maybe conflict with your personal values.
Okay.
I think we all run into that from time to time. I think
Mm-hmm.
some of that's normal, and sometimes you have to think, okay, well, yeah, this is my personal value, but it is business, and I've got to learn how to balance these things. But one of the things that I really focus on in my novels is the main character, whose name is Cheryl. She goes through some of these struggles where, okay, this is what the company's doing. I don't like it. It's very against my personal values. Now, what am I going to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And she says, well, maybe I should walk out. Maybe I should leave, find another job. Or is there something I can do to mitigate or to do something different with my staff or to mitigate what's going on, to honor what's going on with the employees? And so, you know, I don't want to give away the whole story, but she comes
Yeah.
up with some pretty creative ways of kind of coming to a place where she can live with herself in an
Mm-hmm.
environment where things are happening that she's not too happy about.
Right. Because speaking of values, I've always wondered, unless you have your own company where obviously every single decision you make and whatnot,
Yeah.
even if you, let's say Cheryl left and she didn't have a creative way of finding, common ground,
Mhm.
is if you keep leaving, will you ever find an organization that is 100% aligned with your values?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think you will ever will because we all have different values. We all have different needs. Organizations have different needs. And I don't think you'll ever find something. I think you need to find one where you can live with. I mean, there may be other organizations, organizations where your values are so misaligned that you really have to leave. But at some point, you can't keep running away forever, which I think is the point that you're making. You've got to
Mm.
figure out how to come up with, a way to balance things and a way to see other people's points of view and then integrate that in your values or come to a way that you can feel good about yourself in
Mm-hmm.
that situation.
Right. Which then leads to us wondering, how can you build trust
Ooh,
in the
yeah.
work environment?
Which is an entirely what the last book in the novel is about. It's called
Oh.
Embracing Trust in the series. It's called Embracing Trust, and
Mm-hmm.
it's all about trust, both personal and professional trust, because things were broken. But yeah, I think a lot of it is being your word. Um, I know I'm sure you're familiar with the book The Four Agreements, right?
Yes. Don't take things
And
personally. Keep your word. Be
keeping
men
your
of your
word.
word. Yes, that's one of them as
Yes,
well.
and keeping
Yes.
your word, and that is really challenging. I recently read the book by Martha Beck called The Way of Integrity. Whoa, that was
I
very
used to love her when
challenging.
she was being on. She interviewed. I think first time was Oprah, right? Back in the
Yeah,
day.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think
didn't. I
you're
didn't know
right.
she had a new book. Yes, go ahead. Mm,
It's in the last few years anyway. But
right.
it's called The Way of Integrity, and she really challenges you as far as never telling a lie. And you think about how often we prevaricate, not intentionally, flat out blatant lies, but
The
you
small
shade the
talk.
truth a little bit, the small talk, the little
Mm,
white lie. And when you really start thinking about that, it's like, wow. But keeping your word and not telling untruths, particularly blatant untruths, it is really important in building trust. And unfortunately, our society today, truth isn't truth is it doesn't seem to matter a whole lot in some cases. So I think for me personally, I think that's really important, and I think that's one of the messages in the books that I wrote. And keeping your integrity and building trust in an organization, keeping your word, doing what you say you're going to do, and and following up with that, being consistent.
mm-hmm. Because
But
then
but the last
people
novel
trust.
definitely, yeah, the last novel really explores that. So you'll like that novel.
Right. We're looking forward to that's the one that's going to be published at the end of February, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Right. Because here's the thing. When I know that whatever you say you do follow through and you keep your word, I'm going to continue to believe what you say.
Yep,
Versus, because that also happens in personal relationships. If your word doesn't mean much and you just say, nice things just to make me feel better, but your actions are not in alignment with that, I will then, even when you mean it, I'm going to struggle to believe what you're saying.
absolutely. Absolutely. Trust is so important. And I think that's something that we often take for granted until it's broken.
And very hard to bring back once it's broken. Very
Very,
hard to
very hard.
regain.
Yeah.
Yes. And what
Yeah.
other challenges do your clients face when it comes to the work culture?
I think often, and I suspect this is more women than men, but they have other interests, side interests that are more interesting to them sometimes than their work.
Mm,
And I think they struggle with, again, trying to balance that and find ways to, well, I like to do this, but I can't really earn money doing this. I'm earning money doing this, and I'm not really sure I like it. How do you how do you kind of build a bridge between those things and create a career that you like or that you love, even if it's not necessarily your main passion? Because I know they say, follow your passion, blah, 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 which is great advice. And if you can do it, awesome. But it's not always practical. Let's
True.
face it,
Yes.
it's not always practical. Or sometimes, you have to build a bridge between the two,
Mm,
right? I think kind of what I did a little bit. But you find things about your job that you like and that you focus on, and you can build that bridge in kind of unexpected ways. And I think that's one thing that's really fun to explore with people that say, well, I don't like my job and, I'm not happy and I want to do other things. Okay, well, what do you like? Pull apart what you do like about your job. What do you
right.
enjoy doing? What can you do more of in your job? What can you delegate to somebody else if you don't like doing it? How can you, because we can actually restructure our jobs a lot more than we think we can too. I mean, a lot of people think, say, well, this is your job and this is what you have to do. And it's like, okay, particularly as leaders. Okay, yeah, this is my job, but how else can I get this done besides me personally doing it? Right? How can I, maybe there's somebody else in my team that loves doing this. I can have them doing it. I can help them develop, and
Mm,
I can focus on this part of things that I like. Now, I can't ignore it. I have to keep my hands in it. I have to make
of
sure things are
course.
getting done.
Mm,
But maybe I can structure my workday a little bit more so that I can spend more time on the things that I like versus the things that are a drudge to me. And maybe there's somebody else that loves doing those things that are a drudge to me.
hmm Especially, like you said, as leaders, I mean, one of the things they expect you to do is to delegate. You're not
Hmm.
expected to do everything yourself. That's why you
Yeah.
have a team. And that's
Yeah,
how you're going to
exactly.
grow your team. If you don't delegate them to, take care of some of the tasks, how are they going to gain the skills that they need to?
Absolutely. One of the biggest mistakes I see especially, well, actually managers and executives do is micromanage people. You tell them they can do the job, but you're really kind of doing it yourself because you don't trust them, right? You don't trust
Yep.
them. And it's a leap of faith, trust at some point. Okay, I have to trust that you're going to do this. Yes, I'm going to watch over you. Yes, I'm going to make sure that you have the resources you need and that if you have questions, I can help you out with it. But at some point, you've got to let go and say, I'm going to trust that this person can get the job done. And maybe
hmm
they do, and maybe they don't. Um, Hopefully they do. Or hopefully you learn along the way, okay, they can do this part of it, but this part of it they need help. And then to your point, that's how you can develop them and make them better by helping
Right.
them.
Because
So
I don't think anybody comes to the workplace as a finished product.
I don't think any of us come anywhere as a finished product.
Right.
Are you a finished product as a podcast host?
No.
Exactly. And
But
I'm not a
that's the
finished product as a novelist either.
because because here's the thing, if you're a leader thinking that each time you delegate something to your team members, they're just gonna do it perfectly the first time on the first day, it's very unrealistic.
Exactly. Just like my
Mm,
first novel wasn't written right the first time through.
right. Yes, yes. So that's the thing, that having, if you trust your team and you say, okay, like you said, this part they can do, here they need help. That's how you grow them, because the next time they will know exactly what to do and they probably learn something new again. It just keeps
Absolutely.
being this growth journey if you see it that way, rather than, because some leaders go, oh, if I did it myself instead of giving it to Karen, it would have been faster. I would have done it the way I know. And usually that's the
Which is
shortcut one too.
probably true. Which is probably true. But
Uh,
at some point, you have to say, I can't do this all myself, and I have to let other people do it.
right.
Even though you probably can do it 10 times faster, at least the first time they do it.
hmm
I mean, yes, that's true. But you have to let go and accept that.
Right. And then one last thing, when it comes to the communication and the soft skills, in your novels, are there any parts where, not to give the story away, parts where you do come to the realization that, Cheryl, because she was able to focus on these skills, this is why she had success in this particular area.
Absolutely. And again, without giving it away, but in Discovering Power, I will tell you, the book opens with a bunch of layoffs happening and very in a not very good way. And she's very upset with that. She comes up with some very creative ideas, very good soft skill way to work with her team in order to help them overcome that trauma
Right.
rather than just pushing it under the table, which is how we're so often taught to do in corporate. Okay, the layoffs happen, let it go, move on, right?
Mm.
So she decided to approach it a little bit differently,
Um,
and I love the outcome that is in that book. But it's definitely using soft skills and definitely approaching something as traumatic as a layoff very differently than you normally see in a corporate environment.
That is going to be a very exciting read. Awesome stuff. Karen and Bullock, any last words of wisdom, anything that you feel that your clients should continue to work on in order to, like you said, be the drivers of their careers, discover their own power?
Well, I think there's two things. There's one is stay curious because curiosity is one of the best tools that you can have. And the other thing is don't be afraid to take a risk, even if it's just a little one. I think one of the things that I always say when I'm talking to people about taking risks, and this is really important, when we often come up with a whole list of reasons why we can't take a risk. I can't ask for that promotion because blah 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 blah, or I can't do this because blah blah blah, long list of reasons. In my experience, 90% of the time, those reasons are really excuses.
Mm.
So, one of the questions that I always say, and we should always all do this, is when you start to list all the reasons you can't do something, take a hard look at them and ask yourself, are these really valid reasons or are they excuses? Because a lot of times people will think you'll find out that they're excuses, not reasons.
Hmm. One of my favorite quotes is Ty Bennett saying, "All excuses are equal."
That's a great quote. Absolutely.
Right. Yes, because what excuses do, I think, is how does my mom say it? We say it in Zulu, but I'm trying to translate it in English. You're hiding behind your thumb.
Mhm. Yes, they let
Yeah.
us off the hook.
Yes, they let us off the hook. So yes, are they really valid reasons, or are you just trying to use them as a scapegoat to not have the confidence to say, hey, wait a minute, I deserve this. I've worked for
Exactly.
this. I have this skill.
Exactly.
I can contribute this way. Yes. Thank you so much, Karen and Bullock, for this very fun conversation and for sharing the details of your novels, especially the one coming up at the end of February 2026. We were really excited about. We really appreciate you being on our show today. Thank you, Karen.
Well, thank you for having me, Roberta. It's been a great conversation, lots of fun. And if anybody wants to get in touch with me afterwards, you can find me on LinkedIn or at my website, daringtotranscend.com.
Okay, please repeat the website again.
Daringtotranscend.com.
Daringtotranscend.com. We will put that on the show notes. Thank you so much, Karen. Don't
Thank
forget
you,
to
Roberta.
My absolute pleasure. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a rating and a review on Apple and Spotify, and stay tuned for more episodes to come.